Evening, everybody. Starting our pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to town board meeting, January 27th, 2022. Take a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll start out with just some old business. There's one item on there, but there's actually two. Item number one, the town has received a $100,000 DASN New York grant for Arcadia water tank. Christine has it and deposited it. Number two, Phil would like to give an update on Salesian. Want me to bring it back around? Oh, no, I'm good. Okay.
You have to open this up, and I'll just
Yeah.
give you a little,
Take your time.
I just received this from our engineer tonight. So, the contract documents were forwarded to the town attorney. So Rory, do you have the contract documents on the Salesian? Can we forward them around the 21st?
From Sean?
Yeah,
Yes, I do.
okay, good. And the Orange County DPW responded to our request regarding whether a temporary construction access will be permitted. Conceptually, the county will permit the temporary driveway. He found a previous town survey, which means we'll be able to save quite a bit of money because we won't have to get another survey. We'll just have this particular survey updated. And so he reviewed our comments, Joe, requesting a separate bid.
Yeah.
If we could, because I had told him, based on our discussion, we may do it with force account. Correct. Do it with force account, then there's no real charge. And so he said what he'll do is he's going to put it, he prefers to put it in as a total bid and then a deduction. You can do either a total bid and a deduction or a deducted bid and then an added bid. So that's where we stand right now. The contracts have gone out, and hopefully in the next few weeks we're going to start wrapping this thing up and moving along. But once again, the temporary road was the thing that I was the most concerned about. So Bill out there doesn't get us torn apart.
Phil, when do we hear back on the bids?
We have to let them out. Yeah, there are contracts going out. We have a contract.
Oh, I thought, okay, I thought.
Yeah.
they don't-
We haven't released them yet to any of the bidders.
No. He won't release it until we review the bid.
Right.
We'll review the bids and then say, okay, release it. But there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, just in order to prepare the bid. It's really,
Okay.
I mean, it's like 18 pages or something.
And one other question. Did
Yeah.
you find a time capsule in this building?
I don't know if he found one. I know I went to the building
Okay,
and I looked at the one pillar and it appears that the time capsule, based on what someone had told us, I went and looked. And at one of the pillars to the left of the door, when you look at the front door, there is this square section that looks like that's where the time capsule is. So I told Sean, when we take it down,
right.
to make sure that they look for this time capsule and don't destroy it.
The only reason why I asked,
Yeah,
I think it was put in by the Salesian Brothers. And it would be very, very nice for them to be invited to it when they open it up. They're the
Well,
ones
yeah.
who are being.
yeah. And
Even
we had
though-
one right here in the corner of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I was here when we put that thing
Right.
up, and that's probably 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're sensitive.
Good.
As it comes along, I'll bring everybody up to speed.
I do have one question. I know somewhere in one of the notes, somebody said that the requested that we get the village to condemn the building.
Yes,
Is it
I
something
saw
the
that.
village is supposed to do because it's our property? I know there was always an issue with police
Well,
coming
yeah,
here.
but it is in the building, in the village, no matter who owns it.
Yeah.
It is village, and yeah, that's, and Sean is working on that. And I don't think it's a big deal.
Well, my only concern would be that if we condemn the building before we get our bids back, just getting some feedback from out there, people are saying that if you are going to make the entire building asbestos rated building, their cost is gonna be astronomical. So I want to leave open the opportunity for us to go back out and bid and say, okay, sure, up the third floor, get the asbestos out, then take the building down.
Okay, well, we did cover that extensively based on two estimates.
Yeah, I asked Sean, he said he doesn't have anything showing what the cost would be doing it that way.
No, you would have to, well, Quest gave us what they thought and the steps were that the first thing you have to do is get an engineer in there.
Right.
To go in and see what it has to
See what
do
needs
to
be
build
sure.
it up.
Yeah, okay.
And then the second, there were three parts to that. When you added the three parts, it came out to almost the same thing, but the unknown part was what it would cost to move the asbestos. And that was an unknown part. Now, if you want to start from square one, we'll do it.
No, I just want to be
Okay.
able to look at if these bids, I mean, we're assuming the bids are gonna come back around $900,000, right? That's the same.
Probably, I would say, probably $1.2 million now because, well, it's been over a year and a half since he contacted all the people. So,
Right.
but you know what? We'll get the bid. If we don't like it, we'll take
Yeah.
another route,
Absolutely.
you know?
All right. Anything else on that? Anybody else have any questions on solution?
Well, I do have, normally when we go out for bids, there's a time when they've got to have them back by.
Right.
Do you know what that date is?
We give them 45 days?
I forget if it's 45 or 60 days.
Okay, I mean, it's a big job, very
It's a big
complex. So
job. Rory was in the contract. I wonder if you would be able to, I don't have a copy of that. But there is the time frame that they have to follow, so
Okay.
you might have it.
Only reason why I asked that, of course, because originally we wanted to get it down in cold weather before everybody goes out there, April or May.
No, I understand.
Okay,
There's an awful lot to this thing.
Oh, I
There's a
know.
lot,
I know.
Incredibly moving part,
gotcha.
you know.
All right, new business. We have a presentation from Joe Friedman, the Regional Director of Marketing for New York Class. They're responsible for, Christine, you want to give a little?
Yeah, we started investing in New York Class a couple years ago, and it's a pool of investments. It's very liquid, which is nice. Minimums to have, you can make as many withdrawals as you want at any amount. And the rates historically were a lot higher than the bank rates.
Joe, floor is yours.
Where should I go?
I guess in the-
Should I leave the max on or?
Doesn't matter.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah.
So thank you very much for having me. I'm Joel Friedman, and as Christine mentioned, and did part of my presentation. So I'm from New York Class. I've been with New York Class now for about 5 years. Prior to that,
Joel, you
Um,
can use the microphone
oh.
so everybody will hear you.
should I pick it up?
Pull it out.
Yeah, just pull it out.
Pull it out.
It might not be on. Yeah, might have to hit the power button.
That work?
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. I'm gonna go over here so everyone can see.
Okay.
So prior to New York Class, which I've been here for 5 years now, I was at Standard & Poor's New York, downtown New York, for about 26 years, where I used to rate money market funds, which New York Class is very similar to, bond funds, and other types of fixed income investments. So New York Class has been around now for 33 years now, so since 1989. And it's as Christine said, it's a very liquid, so daily liquidity. So if you want your money each day, you can get it as long as you ask for it by noon. 100% liquid. It's a government investment program. It's a cooperative, so everybody, all the towns, villages, fire districts, school districts, counties and cities, and that's all that can be in it around New York State. They pool their money together. It's right now about $3.5 billion in assets. And by doing that, it's a cooperative, so we can generally get better rates. When I say generally, when COVID hit and the Federal Reserve, it's really based on what the Federal Reserve does. When the Federal Reserve lowered rates to near zero, treasuries went to almost zero, as did other types of securities that we purchased for this portfolio. we can only purchase those securities that are per general municipal law. So they're very safe investments, they're collateralized, or they're treasuries. So for example, it would be a collateralized bank deposit, or it could be a treasury bill or treasury note. This pool is also rated AAA by Standard & Poor's, and that's the highest rating that Standard & Poor's gives any type of fund like this. So it's a stable net asset value pool, which means you put your dollar in, you get your dollar back, plus some degree of interest. Again, that degree of interest has been low since COVID hit, but here's the good news. The good news is, and that I gave you guys a handout. On the handout, it's going to explain a little bit, and I'll go into it, but what should happen this year with the Fed and with inflation. So because inflation is high, and everyone's heard about that, you go to your grocery store, you see higher prices. But what that translates to is it gives the Fed a little bit, Federal Reserve, a little bit of panic now, because they have to really tame inflation or the economy won't keep growing. So what they are expected to do, and the market expects them to do, and they just spoke yesterday, is raise rates 4 times this year. Each time, generally, they raise rates, it should be about 25 basis points, meaning 0.25%. So the first one will likely be happening in March, and then it'll happen again either 3 or 4 more times this year. So what will that mean? It means that rates will or should go to about 1% from the current near zero rate environment we're in now. So when Christine started using New York Class, rates were going up and they were higher. And so New York Class would give a pretty good amount of revenue for the town. And that should happen again once rates start rising. Also, what New York Class does is it compounds its rate daily, not monthly. Usually when you put your money in a bank, you get the compounding of interest every month. With New York Class, it's every day. So you can actually, or Christine can, go online and see that interest compounding each day. And I brought with me a few statistics about when the last time the rates rose. So for example, if you had $1 million in New York Class in 2017, you would have earned $7,690. In 2017 is when rates were averaging around 0.75. And I tell you that because hopefully that's going to happen by around September of this year, if base rates do go up 3 different times. In 2018, rates kept going up, and you would have earned on $1 million, $17,400. And in 2019, $20,900. That's in 1 year on that $1 million. So if you had invested that $1 million for 3 years in your class, it would have been over $46,000. So again, you can see the benefit of once interest rates start rising again and the interest compounds. So there's a lot of other features with New York Class that treasurers and others do enjoy. We talked about the daily liquidity. You have unlimited sub accounts. We don't charge any transaction fees whatsoever. So you can move your money in and out at will, unlimited each month. And the sub accounts are nice because you can match whatever you have at a bank, or you can actually have different accounts if you want. You can also move your money intra, within your fund, or to another fund. Let's say if another town or the county participates, etc. So there are a lot of benefits there. And the other thing is it is overseen by a board. And so for the board members, there's 2 local board members. One is the Howell Fire District. So he's the chairman of the board, and that's Bob Wheeling. And the other one is Debbie Rutt from the Port Jervis City School District. So there's 15 board members that oversee this program. And they get the weekly reports, just like Standard & Poor's does, on the collateral, the portfolio, and everything else to make sure. Maybe I'll take a quick break. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, so the funds that we have
Yes.
are funds that we have collected from taxpayer.
Correct.
So this is not really a profit center. All we want to make sure is that the funds are secure. Many years ago, collateralized loans were going, uncollateralized loans, which they had from other municipalities, were going under. I think Monroe itself took a $300,000 loan on it. So I'm more concerned, not with the liquidity or the profit. I'm getting honest with you, the income.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned with the security. So now we get to the collateralization.
Yeah.
And who, first of all, who has the money on deposit? And then is it a third party that collateralizes these funds? So first question first is, where are these funds?
Sure. So the funds are held with a third-party custodian bank, US Bank,
US Bank?
highly rated bank, A1 plus by Standard & Poor's.
Okay, so who collateralizes those funds? If that bank goes under, who do we turn to? Total amount of collateralization.
The collateral is pooled collateral. So it's pooled, it's enough collateral for every participant. Should something happen, which it hasn't in the 32 years of this program, but should it happen, that's an extra layer of protection where you guys and everybody else would get their collateral back, you get your treasury. Then you have to go out and sell it, or we would sell the treasury for you, but that's how it would work.
So there's enough insurance or collateralization to cover the full amount of funds that you have invested. Not only ours, all those $1 billion of funds that we're moving around.
Yeah.
So that whoever goes under, we can get all of that money. It's totally.
So the way it works
Okay.
per general municipal law is everything in the program must be collateralized with the exception of treasury bills. They do not get collateralized because they're treasuries. They can't go under it to the US government. If the government went under, we would all have a lot more problems.
Because the treasury bills we want. We're talking about, what is that?
So these are guaranteed by
Guaranteed.
full faith and credit by the US government. That's all it's gonna be. We can only buy the same things that a town, village, school district can buy. That's it. And so you're right. And just so you know, our goal is the same as yours. Safety first, then liquidity, then yield. And that's why we're not yielding much right now, because we have to be safe.
Once again, the yield is really not my
Right.
concern.
Right.
Everybody else cares about it. I care about
Absolutely.
the safety of it.
Yep.
I know, for instance, one of our local banks, the Orange County Trust, they're collateralized by M&T Bank. So Orange County Trust, or banking trust, goes on M&T. Goes to collateral. That's a real.
Right, and then you have to liquidate that collateral.
That's right.
It's the same thing.
So we have to liquidate it, and we could liquidate
Correct.
it at a loss.
You could, but
Absolutely.
remember, you're getting 102% on this. Well, at least here.
Well, I mean, 2%.
Right,
But what I'm
2%.
saying to you is,
Exactly.
I remember when Ford was at $2 a share.
Right.
And that's when we had all the problems with the loans.
Oh, I
Okay.
remember this
I
too.
want,
Yeah.
you.
I do, and also,
Sure.
and when I was at S&P, I went through all that because I rated a lot of different funds, not these types of funds, these types of funds did not have problems. Other funds did have problems. They had Lehman paper, they had others, but this is a completely different product. We're only working with municipalities here, so we know they have to be safe and can't lose money. Yeah. Yes.
So the scenario that you're describing. The scenario that you're describing is from the chart that I see here. Potentially, if you have these movements up to the 1%, you have CDs, 1 month CD, 3 month CD, savings, they're all kind of flat line.
Right, we're not buying them, just so you know, but we're just comparing to other types of things.
No, no,
But what happened, like this is what happened the last time, this is a national picture. And last time rates went up, banks are typically slower to go up in general. This program goes up automatically for every participant. By the way, we can only give the same rate, the exact same rate to every participant, whether it's a fire district that has $10,000 or some counties have over $100 million. Same rate. And it goes up automatically because as we buy treasuries at higher rates, they go up.
Yeah, so essentially, then, if that was the scenario that took place, you were looking, I think what you're saying is it's going to be somewhere around 2%.
Right, and at the time, that's exactly right. It was.
Right.
But remember, with this, it really depends on the Fed. So every time the Fed raises, that's kind of where you're going to see this pool. You know, that's basically where you'll see. And it goes up pretty quick. Because, and also the maturities in this is 60 days or less. That also helps reduce any risk because they're so short. You know.
So if one of the municipalities default in this pool, the rest of the pool people take that individual?
No, it would have nothing to do with it. Basically, if a municipality defaulted, they're going to get their money back, right? They put in $1 million, they get their $1 million back. But it has nothing to do with this pool. They're just putting money into this pool. They're not going to lose anything. We would give it back. If they said, we now defaulted, we need our money back. Get your $1 million back. That's it.
I see.
Yeah, so no one's going to lose money.
Right. And then last but not least, how do you make your money?
I don't make much rent now. No, really. So New York class will take up to 12 basis points, 0.12% when rates are high. So if rates are 2%, that's the maximum that can be taken, and that's a board approved expense. So that's a total expense ratio, right? 0.12%. Right now, because rates are so low, we've been waiving those fees. So the fees are much lower. And what happens is the rate that you see, so let's say, you know, we post a 2% rate, that's the rate everyone gets. Again, no transaction fees or anything like that. So like Christine won't get a bill from your class at all. It'll just be whatever rate you get, and that's the posted rate. So if that's a 2% rate that everybody gets, and our fee is 0.12, it would mean the gross yield is 2.12%. You get 2%, we get 0.12%. That's it. And so even if rates went up to 5 or 6%, we couldn't take more. That's it, you know, because that's what's being agreed upon rate with the board.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I guess you're hoping that the rates will go up. But now it's been almost 2 years.
Right.
Where you basically have to waive the fees, right?
We had to waive almost all of these. So we might get a couple basis points from that. But yes, almost 2 years for this product. We have in other states though, there's other products. So for example, a 1 to 3 year duration portfolio, so not for this, but in other states. So there, the rates are a little higher, so you can get a small.
I had asked Christine, I'm wondering what the net result was from last year's investments. You have any idea? You might have any idea?
Well, I just know our rate and.
I know the rates have been almost zero, so I'm
Yeah.
just curious with
Well,
the,
so treasuries have been yielding 3 or 4 basis points, 0.04.
right,
That's it.
I know,
So that's why there's just no rates.
right.
But in March, hopefully,
Well, it's supposed to be-
right, exactly.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Does anybody have any other questions?
Good. No, we're good. Joel, thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you coming up here to educate us.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And I guess it's warmer in Orange County than it is in Dutchess County.
Yes.
All right, so next on the agenda is to review and discuss the purchase of a Bobcat excavator in lieu of renting it like we have been for the last 4 years. I put together a spreadsheet of cost savings analysis on what the town could save. We are currently renting it for 5 to 6 months a year at a cost of $3,600 a month, anywhere from $18,000 to $21,600 a month. Under New York State, we did acquire one for $108,000, giving a net cost savings over the life of the machine, which is roughly 20 years of $324,000 for the town. I've asked Broderick to come down at Phil's request, but this is not an issue, just so everybody understands. This is not something that Broderick approached me on. It's something that I looked at as a line item reduction in being fiscally responsible with the town's money. But Broderick is here. Doug?
Just a little history, okay? In 2006, we made $4.6 million of debt. and we had 9 separate deaths. And because people were, just, we need it, we want it, whatever it is. And it kept building. And so in 2006, we had to say stop. We had to start buying used equipment because it was out of control. And it took about 3 iterations of supervisory groups to get it there. So I just highlight that. The other thing I'd like to say is that there's some priorities. The way we did the 2022 budget, we started in July and every department head came to Christine's office and said, what do you need? Not what do you want? What do you need? Now I've dug out a sheet that we had back then, and Roderick, you have a 1994 International Harvester dump truck, 28 years old. You have another 96, another 99, another 99. And we've had bad luck with frames. They break, they buckle, you got to buy a new one. We put in for the budget this year, $300,000 to buy a new truck. The last one we bought was 2 years ago, I guess, it was $225. It's gone up about 33% based on the cost of steel. So I figured 300,000 is a good item. But the point I'm trying to make is we've given a lot of thought to his organization to be able to continue doing what they're doing. We put a lot, we had a tentative budget, preliminary budget, we finally went with the final budget. And a lot of work went into this for the safety of the equipment, the assurance that you can still do your job. Now, the other thing, Broderick, I'm glad you're here because this excavator that you're leasing or renting, okay, it's got the big scoop on the front for doing the ditching along the roads, is it? Okay. We have two, Joe, we have two backhoes. I think one's a regular one, one's an extended hoe, is it? Okay. So we can dig any kind of hole you want to dig. It doesn't have to be this excavator. But this excavator is built for ditching on the side of the road where you just go up and it's wide and you can then pivot and put it in the truck. This is not the kind that you'd want to buy for doing repair. Like I was out, we had a water main leak two days ago and I went out there and it was an excavator, but it had a narrow bucket on it. I think you were operating it and digging it down so far. And then once you dig so far, then we use the hydrovac, which is miraculous what they can do. So anyway, I'm just trying to give the background, not trying to say yes, no, or otherwise, but we have put a great deal of thought into these things. The priority for highway is trucks, because if you lose a truck, it's not, you don't have any plow snow, so okay.
Just something, Joe, Jeff, I can just respond to that. I think
Sure.
they're great points that you made, but also when the budget went into play, there was 21,600 in the rental part of that budget. Correct, Christine?
I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all I'm trying to do is look at a cost savings over as you've done in the past.
Right.
You know, we have that left arm, that left turn thing that we turn, it's a savings turn. So I've looked at this and said, okay, we're gonna reduce by $300,000. This is a no-brainer and it has nothing to do with what we can do in the future. There could be cost savings in the future too. But we haven't addressed that yet. We will address that as a board. But I think overall, this just makes tremendous sense, cost savings, and it shows our fiscal responsibility as a board.
That machine also does have multiple buckets. They
Yeah.
can change the buckets, and it has a lot of different attachments that we can buy in the future if we need.
Well, let me make one other thing. Okay. In December of 2000, in November of 2000, Joe Klopscher died. He was our water sewer operator. We paid him about $25,000 a year to do that. And the health department gave us 30 days to have a licensed operator. And we didn't have one with internal. a week or so after he died, Broderick said, you know what, I've had enough of this business. I don't want to do water and sewer anymore. with our people. And to include mowing the grass, plowing the snow, working on the holes, leaks, or whatever it was. And that was his choice. He's an elected official superintendent of highways. This was added on years earlier. And he said, I have enough of this stuff. So,
I mean, I don't want to go backwards and.
No,
what
but I'm-
happened in the past, understand.
but what I'm sharing is that I don't know if Broderick wants to get involved in this. You know.
But as I said, this has nothing to do with any future work relative to the water district.
Okay,
This is strictly a cost-saving measure and a savings to the town of $324,000 over 20 years, a potential savings of $536,000, because the machine could last upwards of 30 years. They're out there at 30-year lifespan. Am I correct, Robert? So it has nothing to do.
well, can I ask one, I don't mean, one other question. We have two backhoes. One's an extended hose, and we got this. Do we need this? If you didn't rent this, you could use one of the other two to, I mean, if something went wrong, you couldn't afford it.
I find it a little disconcerting that for the number of years that you've worked with me and you've seen what we've done with the excavator. You've seen where we've gotten into places.
Oh, sure, I
Backhoe is
understand.
not an excavator, but yes, in its simplest rudimentary form, they do the same thing, but one is very heavy.
Right.
It is not, we've gotten into Arcadia Hills, there's drainage easements where all the
Sure.
catch basins end up going into very wet areas, and we've even had trouble with the, getting the excavator in. Wouldn't go close to that with a backhoe.
They're completely different pieces of equipment, completely.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if we're out there digging trenches on the side of the road, every time we go to use the backhoe, we got the stabilizers down in order to dig. Where the excavator, we don't, just keep going along. So there's a huge time savings on that too. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
Well, okay, I'm just sharing what the history has been, and I'm still looking at, you've got a truck, one truck, 28 years old, et cetera, and we've got three more behind it. And I'm just talking about, if you lose one of those, you're talking a major expense. And if we buy this,
I'm not sure the intent here was to buy the excavator, not buy a truck.
Yeah, no, we're still buying the truck. It's in the budget. You gave him $300,000 to buy the truck. That doesn't affect this.
what I'm sharing though is that if one fails a year, you've got, this one's 28 years old, you got a 90, you've got a 94, 296, or a 96 and 299. And we've had multiple failures. I'm just saying, flexibility,
We'll have to address that.
flexibility.
We'll have to address that year to year as a board on what we need to do, along with, with no disrespect, though, with no disrespect. That's what happens when you buy used equipment for 20 years. Sooner or later, it does catch up to you. So we're at the point right now where it's caught up to us, and we have to figure out as a board how we support Roderick and his people to get these things done. I think this is a good first point. My opinion, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'll turn it over to you, Phil. You asked.
Yeah, I thought that was a good discussion. I had talked to Roderick already. We had a lengthy conversation as far as the utilization of this thing. As far as the cost, I can tell you this much. It's extremely favorable. Surface has 15 of them ready to go for $137,000. So when I looked at this, I wasn't even sure if this was like a certified used or something.
Like brand
But
new.
I don't know, I think it's, and Roderick has explained that the utilization would be for most of the town highways. But before we talked, I was a little concerned because a lot of the emails that went back and forth kind of justified the purchase because we had so many breaks of the water and sewer in Hamilton Park. These are apples and oranges.
Correct.
Totally apples and oranges. However, a lot of the justification initially, the email to me, the justification was, well, we had so many breaks in Hamilton. It's easier if we use our own equipment or our own personnel, which leads into another question. These are just questions. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying I need to understand. So I think as far as utilization goes, I'm okay. Not a problem, it all makes sense. Now, we're going to segue into what our real situation is, and that is the subject. Using our personnel, I mean, this is like a $50,000 lawsuit because we used one of the highway personnel who wanted to continue to get paid, even though we took them out of the water and sewer district, and the union sued us and so on and so forth. So I think before we talk about using highway personnel, first of all, I don't know if we have the expertise. Second of all, if Broderick is not going to be a part of it, we're going to have a bunch of unsupervised highway personnel fixing water leaks or sewer leaks. It doesn't make sense to me at all. So I'm not understanding. And that's why I want the Broderick, because maybe he can help me understand how are we going to do that. And then,
Maybe I can simplify this a little bit.
and then we have to worry about how are we going to, the town general fund is going to be paying all of these highway employees union wages. How are we going to build the subdivisions for either the equipment and or the man hours? Because I don't know if we've been doing that. There are a lot of issues.
When we work on,
Go ahead.
in the past, if highway people have worked on water or sewer issues, their labor gets charged to the,
Pacific Center.
to the, correct. Let's separate two things out.
Yeah.
Water and sewer department, and I am the superintendent of highways for the town. of Goshen.
Right.
Something that goes on in the street affects me as superintendent of highways. When Cam has a leak and you're gonna repair it, Tony will notify me that he's going into the road. So I have always viewed that part of the repair. We do not have people that can put the repair clamps on, we do not have back on, we do not have ways to safely handle. But we have equipment that we can take the blacktop off, we can start the dig, we can bring in item 4 or millings or whatever we're going to use and charge that back fairly to the district. Obviously, when we use force account labor, it is significantly less than prevailing wage, which we have to pay our contractors.
If we use force account in special district. Is that what we're talking about doing from now on? I'm.
I have a question, Brad. Are you willing to take responsibility for this?
Yeah. We're back in the loop.
Superintendent, I never said I wouldn't take a water main break,
You're doing it now.
so,
Well,
I mean,
No,
this
no,
all
he
was
can break the
predicated.
road. That's his responsibility. But the rest of it that goes with it, goes to him. He wasn't gonna do it. Yeah.
No, we understand that. Again, we're getting off track here. This is, whatever he's using this excavator for now, and I apologize.
No, no.
Because
we're all right.
I started this can of worms by saying that maybe in the future, we can get the highway department to assist us. I mean, we've had 5 water main breaks
Right.
since I became supervisor, to the tune of almost $100,000 to the districts.
Right.
We're not flush with cash in those districts. I was being forward and looking at the potential. If we had this 12 months a year, we only have it 6 months a year right now. And unfortunately, water main breaks don't happen when we
Yeah,
know what
so the excavator's done. As far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to go. But
Okay,
I'm
so I mean,
concerned
I
about
think,
the rest of it.
I think establishing the highway department for helping with water main breaks is for a future discussion. I don't think it was meant to be tonight, but it's my fault for putting it in the email. to you.
Okay, yeah, so that's why I needed to be clear from Broderick, who's going to supervise anybody that comes, because we have, and I don't know where the letter is. That you, and I understand why, you had no problem, you wanted to withdraw from the water and sewer districts as far as supervision or whatever, not the roads. I'm talking about the water and sewer district stuff. And if we're sending highway people in, that's a whole can of worms that we really have to talk about.
So
So
again, I'm
That's
going to
what I
discuss that at a future date. if
That's-
That's your
Highway
position.
people are on the job, that is my responsibility. So no, we're not, highway department are not going willy-nilly trying to repair a leak.
Right.
Again, we have other
We're
people.
looking at support in what you said. bringing in item 4, digging the initial dig,
That's,
covering it up and putting, black on the road.
that's highway. That's not a problem. Well, that's not where I was going.
George?
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess, is this on?
Yeah.
I guess, Joe, I was in the same thing as Phil.
Yeah.
Right in your memo to us, it says, with this unit, we can now call out our people to water breaks and start the process of clearing before we dispatch TAM and I guess JCO.
Again,
So,
got ahead of myself.
Right, okay, so
That's
that's all the thing, but I think part of the rationale of buying the excavator, at least in my part, was that it was going to be used for water leaks and in the districts. But we've had a phone conversation, a couple of conversations, so I'm still a little bit confused here, Roderick, if you could clear that up. Are you going to be going out to these water main breaks and assisting, fully well knowing that TAM has to probably be there and JCO, as well?
Yeah.
But that's a factor in my mind of whether or not I want to purchase this thing. If we're going to be using this for those types of things, if we're using it for other stuff, well, maybe I still will decide to purchase it. But in my mindset now is I'd like to be able to use the instrument as many times as we possibly can for the water. So can you give me a little bit more direction then as far as what you're going to do with
Certainly,
water
the
leaks?
highway department can respond, and there are times that they can't. As I discussed with Joe, there are times when we'll get ready to go out for a snowstorm, or
Right.
sometimes I can't get enough people.
Right.
But we've worked, and when that has occurred, then TAM's handled the entire thing.
And I understand. I understand that it's not going to be 100%, but when you can assist us, that's what we're looking to get the biggest bang for the taxpayers. And I think we can get the biggest bang for the taxpayers by using your staff.
This is the pivotal, this is the pivotal point, because it is, a year ago, it was not going to be done to include mowing grass, plowing the snow and points, whatever. But if it's roads and you say you want to work with the roads, and that's fine. There's
Yeah, we're talking
change.
about roads, we're not putting that other stuff.
I
We're
understand.
not talking about, but there's a definite separation there, and I don't know, I consider it kind of black and white, but.
Okay, so let me move on with some other information that I think might help us all make a most intelligent decision here. In actuality, these are the stats that I got from Christine as far as actual costs that we've had just for the excavator rental. In 2021, we spent $25,000. In 2020, we spent $29,000. In 2019, $18,000. In 2018, $18,000. There was some other minor item for about $4,500 that we rented from them. But anyway, collectively, over the last 4 years, we've spent for just renting the excavator $86,000. That, to me, to some extent, screams for, hey, why don't we purchase it? It's all we're almost there, after 4 years. So I that's my dilemma. I'm seeing it from a couple of different types of angles. Now, going to the budget itself, we do have the $300,000 in there. We try and follow the budget. My understanding is that $300,000 will be 200 plus for a new dump truck, and then 2 bodies for some of the, I guess, older
The
things.
original intent at the time, yes.
Right. So essentially now what's going to happen is we have another roughly $100,000 that we're going to potentially expend. And do we have the money?
Well, George, I think we need to find, truly, that $300,000, we paid $225,000 2 years ago for a truck. Now, we need to find out what's a truck going to cost in today's environment. Amy's Kitchen was going to build their place for $125 million, and now it's up over $200 million. because of the cost of steel. I don't know if that translates to trucks or not, but
So if I can jump in, what if we reevaluate what the truck costs and it's $460,000? Set aside from ever buying the excavator, I never spoke about it. What would we do? We'd either not buy it or extend the additional money to buy it, right?
well, we'd have to look and find out where we're gonna get it. you
Okay,
know.
so again, so
And I
my
should
point
say one
is,
thing, the truck, the last truck we got was less than $200,000. The truck that we will order this year will cost over 225,000. I don't have a firm figure yet,
Okay.
but,
And the two bodies are what, the other 75,000?
we bought a body in the past for 50, around 50.
Okay. So the 300,000, what you're saying is used up.
That was how the budget was.
So now we have to look and see how we can buy the six.
Yeah, and that's what the other thing, can we get a ban? We'll do it over 5 years.
we can,
Instead of.
but we
I
have.
don't know how much cost. there is
Christine
to
has-
Is there any way you can transfer any funds?
Well, right now,
Yeah.
very rough estimate in the DA fund, which is where we buy machinery from, has a fund balance of about 1.4 million. So we can just take it out of fund balance, or you can always do an interfund transfer from A fund. Has a fund balance of about 2 million. And transfer that to DA.
What else is coming out of DA? that-
Machinery,
If we did it,
snow removal
Uh-huh,
and brush and weed.
What about taking down the Sleazy building? It's A fund, but
Okay.
that's it.
it's strictly A? Okay.
So I think we have the money that we need, correct?
The only thing that the expense to rent the excavator comes out of DB, which is the town only highway fund. You're buying the equipment in DA, but you're getting the benefit of savings in DB, but that's just.
How much do we
It
have
is
in
what it
DB
is.
right now? The 21,000?
I think Joe said
844.
How much?
844,000.
No,
Oh,
DB,
you mean that expense line? Bill?
no, how much do we have?
What's our
How much do we budget for?
Unexpended balance, right?
Right. We have really expended balance in DB.
Fund balance in DB is 844.
Okay, so we can take some of that 844.
No, because
Because
the
we're gonna use
machinery,
that for,
the machinery has to come out of
machinery
DA.
has to come out of DA.
So we spent, what did we spend last year out of DA expenditures? I think it was $700,000.
Yes,
So, and we got
Almost
1.4
800.
million in there, so
right,
taking $108,000 out of that budget is not gonna affect us even if we have
right. And
the
then you
worst winter
always
of our
have
lives.
the backup of the 8 fund.
What's that?
Right.
Well, can you pay cash for it then?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't ban it for 5 years. I could buy it outright.
Yeah.
I was just suggesting that because the interest rates are so low.
Yeah.
You could get 0%. A lot of these companies have 0%.
Money for nothing.
Yeah, I want to say one other thing, the analysis that Christine did was on the 4 years. We had rented that starting in 2014. That was for a month or two, and then it gradually was found more and more use for it, and rental stuff.
So,
Yeah, there is another question. You know, you have an extended hoe and you got a regular backhoe. Would you need both of those if you had this? Could you sell one of those or trade one in on?
Certainly you could. I don't know that there's a whole lot of value in what we have. They're quite old, but Case is probably the better one than the new one.
Right.
Certainly see what they work.
Joe, we had
I
a,
think there's
we
much justification.
had a, we bought a motor grader. And I think we paid $225,000 for it used. And finally, the last person who knew how to operate it retired. And sat there for 3 or 4 years. We finally sold it.
is that the one we sold to Greenville?
Yes, yeah.
Christine and I were talking, we were laughing
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
So,
Yes, we got it, it was about 150,000, and we were being badgered to buy it. We finally bought it after 4 years. We bought a used one, and it sat idle for like 3 years, and we sold it. For $350. This is not the case here.
well, no, I'm just thinking, you got 3 machines, and I don't know how many operators you have. You got 2 backhoes, and now you got an excavator. You put them all to work at one time. Could you do that?
Do that analysis.
Okay.
What it would work.
All right.
The value of the New Holland is not there. It's always better to have a backup machine.
Yeah.
Because if the case goes down, then you're renting one if you're in the middle of a job. Right, any other discussion?
So this is another discussion, but I was charged with making sure that the insurance claim was open and running with Mr. Casualty for the repair of the garage. And I know I'm not trying to, I can do this separately. All I want to do tonight, though, is I want to mention to the rest of the board that we have, as it stands now, we have a significant expense that's going to be coming out of that this next year as well. I have figures that I have, Roderick and Sean, and I think everybody should be aware of this because this is another expense that I think some of you folks may not be aware of.
No.
So do you want to know?
Is it potentially?
You want to know it now?
Yeah.
Potentially
Okay,
300,000.
great. Okay, so here it is. Again, I was charged with making sure, because this claim is like 2 years old. So I called Marshall and Sterling, started speaking to the people that do the claims work. And they said, this claim's about to be closed. And I said, no, it's far from closed. There's a lot of stuff that's happening here. So anyway, it's open and it's, as far as I know, as long as we're showing progress, which we are, as long as we're showing progress, the case is open. And of course, we will want to fight the good fight to get as much insurance money as we possibly can from damage to. So here's the figures. So the temporary shoring is going to cost us $88,221. The repair to the building is slated to be $118,211. The temporary closure we talked about this afternoon, I just threw in a figure of 30,000. I could be off there, but that's what I decided to do. The temporary closure without the shed being built was going to be $70,155. So anyway, those 3 figures, you add them up, that's $236,432. The insurance that we have received so far is $72,474. So what I am telling you tonight, from what I know, hopefully this changes, the cost of out of pocket for the town for the repair is going to be $163,958. And the other part of this is the shed, which, the shed is going to be there after the fact. So you can factor that in, but you can't factor it in completely. But the shed, the foundation, and the block is going to cost us $135,314. And the actual grant that we were getting, the $50,000, is that now moot? That gone, or is that still in the works?
Still in the works.
Still in the works, okay. So that would be maybe factored down by 50,000. So again, the reason why I'm bringing this up at this particular point is not to belabor the issue of the excavator, but I do want you to be aware of, this is the figures as best I know at this point.
So why wouldn't they all be covered by Marshall and Sterling?
Right.
They have already written a report. They had a forensic engineer come down, and they basically are saying, and I can't tell you what this is going to finally wind up. I mean, they wind up in litigation, for all I know. But what they're saying is there was damage to that building before the guy hit it with the truck. So we're covering the damage that was done by the truck, but the damage that was done over years, other hits and other types of things, we have no part in. And there's a forensic report basically stating. So,
George, how
I don't
soon
know
will
what's
they,
gonna-
how soon will we know the answer to all of this?
well, I'm feeding, in fact, I sent another thing today. What was it today that I sent? I guess I sent the stuff you gave me, probably, this afternoon. I sent that out because the shed, in my mind, and of course, I'm looking at it from the town standpoint, is the shed is an integral part of this repair. Because the trucks are gonna be moved out of the garage and moved into the shed. So if we didn't have the shed, then we would have had to do this elaborate closure to the tune of the $70,000 I mentioned before, and now we don't have to do that. So I'm hoping that part of the shed
That's not gonna happen.
will be covered. Well,
It's not gonna
I'm
happen.
stretching it. But anyway, when will we know? I think it's gonna kind of be a situation where, as we submit these different types of things and have dialogue with these people, that we'll find out how much insurance actually is gonna be covered, but I can't tell you
The
now.
reason why I asked, we're spending a lot of this money because we have to have this building to put the trucks in so that in cold weather, snow and so forth. If this is all gonna take place in June or something, then I said, that's maybe a good point. And you don't, the number may be lower, I don't know.
The reason,
Well, I didn't even factor in the check.
Okay.
I put that as an addition, and hopefully I might be able to squeeze some money out of it, but as you said, no, it's a
You
stretch.
mentioned we,
Yeah. That's
when can we get a copy of the forensic report, and turn it over to the town attorney, let him look at it?
that's right.
This
Oh, yeah.
might be a moot point for us right now, and we may be able to force the issue where they cover us.
I hope that's
If
the
we have
case,
spent
but the forensic report, I believe I have, and I don't know if a copy ever came to the town, but I can
Can
get
you
it.
get a copy
Oh,
of it?
you can get a copy of that.
Can I just say one thing about
Send it
that
to her.
forensic report?
Oh, Brian has it. You have a copy of that, right? Forensic report from that engineer that came down when we were out there.
Yes. His full analysis that there had been damage to the building was from Street View. And so you can't get beyond the street. You can't come into the parking lot and look at the building. So from that, he sees an angle where one of the separations between the garage doors appears to be pushed in. I just find that a little sketchy as far as.
What I'm saying, we can turn it over to the attorney and let them look at it, because I don't see how an insurance company that's getting premiums is gonna take a view of, from Google Earth and say the door is expanded by 2 inches, so we're cutting your bill down $168,000.
Well, I'll add to that just quickly. If we had no incidences where we had actual damage to that building within the last 10 years, then they wrote the insurance policy at the beginning of this year, the way the condition of the building was.
yeah,
And last year, and the year before. So that is full on.
yeah,
They didn't send
They
the
should be-
inspector out to look at it.
If they did it
Point it
right.
out.
So that's just, I mean,
they should be covering
I
every
did have
bit of
a-
damage on
The
that.
the forensic engineer took the
Yeah.
stuff, as you said, from Google Earth,
yeah.
but he actually was there. He did a site visitation, went through the building and did more than just the Google Earth. You were there, I was there.
Their premium was
Right,
based
but it
on
was
what the
the
building
Google
was.
That
Okay.
he was saying there was damage before. That's.
So
just the point.
let's see your initial report that you wrote when you're writing the policy. You have to come out and inspect the property.
And see how much damage is
If
in
there was,
that.
then point it
If
out.
there isn't, they have to have.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
They
That's where I'm going. Okay.
All right, great.
Any damage that's done to that building, they should be covering regardless, so,
All right, so
I mean, if it's 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
They should
because
be,
they're
they should be
insuring the
covered.
building as is the way it is now.
Yep.
They're not deducting for this and they probably did.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
So, okay, so I have,
I have a copy of it, but I think you actually have, it's probably easy of you to just send it over to the town hall, that forensic report. Thank you.
Well, it sounds to me like we uncovered a couple. First of all, Broderick, I appreciate you saying you have to go work on the roads with the machine. That was in the back of my mind. Why would you buy a machine if you don't want to oversee the work? That's a good thing.
Yeah.
This stuff with the insurance and whatnot and the total cost, I mean, it's not 300,000, but as we get into this, and I think we're gonna need to talk to Christine as to where the money coming from and the insurance and all that. We need to get really into that, so we'll know how much money we have to deal with.
I think we've looked at that already, and let's just figure out where we stand right now. We're all in agreement that we're gonna move forward with this
Yeah,
as a purchase.
yeah.
The excavator,
So-
yes. You want me to make the motion?
Yeah.
Well, I have a specific motion that Christine wrote out for me in very,
All right, well.
so she wrote a motion out for us to,
See if Rory agrees with
well, first we have to
it.
make a motion to purchase the excavator in lieu of renting an excavator.
Lou just purchased it, that's all. I second the motion for the amount that was.
Wait, nobody made the
Nobody
motion.
Doug made the motion.
Doug made the motion,
Bill seconded it.
Bill
All in
second,
favor? What do we do?
Aye.
and Christine wrote it.
Very good. Then and then she goes on to say, if approved, we need a motion for the inter-fund transfer of 108,000.
That's if you want to take the money out of the general fund.
I think we ought
Which I
to.
think makes sense.
Absolutely, I think we ought to.
So we need a motion for an inter-fund transfer of $108,390.65 from the A General Townwide Fund to the DA Highway Townwide Fund.
I'll
Make the
move.
motion.
Okay, I'll
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We have one more motion. Then we need to approve the budget transfer of a DA fund balance to DA-5130-200 highway machinery for $108,391.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was easy.
Well, it's easy once we find out where we're all,
Yeah.
get everything on the
That's
table.
the whole. key.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I thought this was a nice discussion we've had on finance for a long time.
Because
Commissioner of
Christine's gonna get in
Finance.
deeper with more finance. Christine's gonna present us the rules of eligibility for the use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. ARPA, she
Yeah,
intensely worked on this, so
yeah,
Christine, the floor is yours.
yeah. I'm gonna Mary, I'll make a short question.
Put it in a letter.
I read all this.
Put it in an email.
There's a memo that she wrote for me in that.
I attended a webinar held by the Associations of Towns on the final ruling of the eligible uses of the American Rescue Plan Act Fund. One of the eligible uses was to recover lost revenue to provide government services. Using the original Treasury formula, I estimated that the town had lost $304,000 in revenue in 2020. Final rule allows for the use of up to $10 million of standard allowance. So that means that the town can assume up to $10 million in lost revenue, but not to exceed the amount of the award. So we received $454,921.72 last summer. We'll receive $454,921.70 this summer, for a total of $909,843.42. We can use that on any government service. We have until the end of 2024 to obligate the funds, meaning to be under contract, and until the end of 2026 to spend the funds. The funds are considered town only because the village receives their own funds. After I consulted with the associations of towns and our outside auditors, Nugent and Hausler, it was confirmed that the funds can also be used for the water districts in the town. And that was one of the original eligible uses. There was no limit on that.
Water.
And that's
water
even
and
by
sewer,
district?
or
Yeah.
Water and sewer, or just water?
No, water and sewer
Okay.
infrastructure.
But doesn't that an unequal, I mean, the people who don't live in water districts,
I know, but they are allowed.
they're allowed to do this?
Yeah, just like several years ago, you obtained a grant for the water main in Town Park.
Yes,
And that was, I believe that was federal money,
that was federal money.
and it went specifically to that one district. So
Right.
it's kind of along the
That
same
was the,
line.
what the grant was for.
No, that grant was for that. We
For that.
applied.
I know that, I know that.
That's what it was
But I mean, it's
applied.
just kind of along the same line where you're applying, you know.
I'm still not convinced. I mean,
Right,
I'm
I can
skeptical.
speak to the associations of town, I spoke. to
Well,
lawyer
the
there.
association of town is just a bunch of people who live down.
If I could,
Yeah,
again,
they're-
if I could interject there, I went one step further,
Go ahead, John.
and I asked Kelly Norton to take a look at it, and she's in agreement with her. They are municipal districts, they've been deeded to the town. That money can be used for them. So we can get it written. Rory wasn't appointed yet when I asked this question, this was 3 weeks ago. So, but she did look it up, and she said, yeah, the ARPA money can be used for water and sewer districts that are deeded to the municipality.
And it can also be used for highway,
Police, everything.
police, everything, so.
Yeah.
My,
Exactly.
my point was that the whole town should share in this, we have things other than these special districts.
Yeah.
We should share in this because these are federal funds for the town of Goshen.
Right.
Now, the village, I know, has federal funds for their sewer, they have a sewer. So I'm not sure, they can put it in there. But there are highways, I mean, a lot of things
Right,
I
that
think,
this
I think they're going
municipality
to,
needs.
I think
rather
they're gonna
than
spend
throw
most of theirs on their
everything-
water system.
Huh?
I think they're gonna put most of theirs into the water system.
The village.
In the village,
Yeah,
yeah.
what I'm saying to you
Right.
is, there's a village-wide water system.
Right.
In the town, there are only two
No, that's
special
what I
districts,
agree.
and there's almost $1 million given to the
Right.
town. And the only people that are gonna get it,
I know.
special districts, that somewhere along the line, we need to look at the roads and stuff like that and see that
I'm-
everyone
I'm just-
gets a
yeah.
benefit.
I'm just
I
saying
think
what's top,
however-
what we're allowed to use it on.
I think
Yeah.
what we need to do
Yeah.
is develop a plan on where we need services for the entire town,
There,
right? And take a look at it and say, okay, the police department needs X dollars for cameras.
that's what I'm.
Roderick wants to pave a specific road in the town. And then after that, then when
And
we
a portion
allocate that, we
for
say, okay, we
water.
got 300,000 left, we can put to the water and sewer. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Can't spend the entire $1 million on the water and sewer. That's not fair.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah. Thanks, Rory.
Kelly did. Steve, you guys need me?
You weren't here, so I had to get that answer. I don't want to think twice, ask me the same answer.
It's nice.
I was being fiscally responsible.
I agree with Kelly's opinion.
So far, so
Christine did a
good.
great job on the motion.
Okay.
All right, so we, next on the agenda,
Thank you, Rory.
Thanks, Brian. Take care.
And thank you.
next on the agenda is,
Putting Anna Santos as commissioner.
I'm trying to figure out the
Considering-
best possible way to verbiage this. All right, I'm just gonna go at it. We're gonna discuss and approve the appointment of Anna Santos as the town appointee to the Goshen Senior Commission. We went out in the newspaper, we put an ad out there, anybody interested in being the liaison, she's the only one that responded back. So
She's the most qualified then, huh?
she is the most qualified.
I
then,
need
you
a
know.
motion.
And Bonnie did like her.
But, yeah,
I'll make a motion. You made a motion, Phil?
I make the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
What does this person do, by the way?
She sits at the meetings that they have at the senior center, like Rick does with the
The JRC.
We had one of these in the past.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. and She didn't reapply for it.
Who was it?
Sheila Keenan.
Sheila.
Sheila Keenan.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Fine.
She was like it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess she wasn't interested, so. All right, along those lines, we have 2 vacancies on the planning board as alternates. We put an ad in the paper. Jeremy.
Zawick.
Zwei? Okay. Jeremy's way. Sent his resume in, you have an attachment there.
Right.
Really good, strong resume, really good, really qualified resident in the town of Goshen. I'd like to discuss it and, anybody have anything to talk about? Any questions, ask Jeremy?
I don't even. I'll make the motion.
No, I don't. Second.
I'll make the motion.
All right, second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Jeremy. Better go to CVS right now and get yourself 2 bottles of ibuprofen. Okay, Christine, discuss and approve Christine going to a summit up in Albany. Want to give us a little background, Christine? I know I have it in writing, but
Yeah, I've been going since, I think, 2015, the FOA. Have a lot of topics that are helpful. My position, and I meet a lot of people from other municipalities, and that's really the most value that I get there is, people to bounce things off of.
Yeah.
And this year, the topics will be debt compliance, public sector investment, financial reporting, retirement plan, disaster recovery. And we always talk about economic trends in the future, things like that.
and cybersecurity.
Yes, cybersecurity, exactly. And
Wonderful.
that's part of the disaster recovery too.
And we're looking at what, about $800, correct?
Yeah.
So we need a motion.
Motion, please. Second.
To dollar amount. Not to exceed $1,000.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion not to exceed.
I guess I'm not going with you. huh?
That's right.
She asked for 1,500, actually.
To allow Christine to.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
When is it, buddy?
April 6th through the 8th.
Okay.
You usually come back and give us a report as to what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I
there's
didn't know
really
you
a lot
part
of
of the motion, but I know you do that. So, okay.
Before we review and approve the minutes from the last meeting, we had some good news. Was with the county exec last night, and we got the letter today. The county had a great rebound to sales in all the different areas, including Legolands. And we received a supplemental check for Q4 of $217,602.47 today.
Sales tax.
Correct.
Sales tax.
Which exceeds our budget by $549,767 this year.
So what was the total?
1 million for the year, $1,649,767. We budgeted $1.1 million.
Nice.
But if
Where
you
does
stop
that
and
go?
think about
Let's buy an
Legoland,
excavator. Chris, where does that go?
Fee fund.
Fee
General
fund.
town owned.
There you go.
but when you think about the community host fee and the tax, sales tax, and things like, you're gonna bring a lot of money to this community. For 30 years, what's the deal with that?
I waited till Broderick left and then, so he didn't say, okay, I'm getting my second truck this year.
I'm surprised that he wants to work for us. I'm just good. He was so adamant not 2 years ago not to be able to do this. So good for us.
Yeah, wonderful. I have a motion to review and approve the minutes of January 13, 2022.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, finance. Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay the accounts payable check run of January 27, 2022 in the amount of $201,355.50. Motion? So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And last, discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay manual AP run in the amount of $1,714.42.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I have a motion to close the meeting. Public comment. Oh, public.
Wait, I have one comment before we do public, meeting. Sorry, I have one thing. Today, I got an estimate, we talked about I know, we're spending money, right?
Well, no,
But I got an
you're
estimate.
talking about- you're talking about joint rec,
I got,
right?
yeah, I got
Well,
an
never done, you told me, you said you've been waiting for it for 3 years, so I mean, that's just an invitation.
2 years.
That's an invitation for me to make the phone call.
Let me find it, hold on a second. The proposal is actually for prefab pavilions, at a metal roof. Let me see. I could read all the details, but it's gonna be, so.
What's it cost?
Yeah.
The final price
Big
was,
$2,000.
it was 42,000 and change. That's without the concrete.
Concrete.
Yeah, we were talking 100,000.
Yeah.
That you were asking.
So we're way up.
Yeah, we're probably, with concrete and everything, we're probably somewhere around 60 grand.
60,000, yeah.
And we have what, 425?
Yeah.
in the-
So it is,
Parkland fees.
56 by 40 by
But
12.
you can't use it if, we're not gonna, that's town only, parkland.
Say that again?
Parkland fees are fee funds, town only,
Right.
Correct.
so I don't think you can.
Well, what we
Use that.
did, no, what we made a deal was, is we would do this and the village would
They're
do
gonna put the
something else.
bathrooms in. At their-
There-
Uh,
So
But if
we,
you look back, I think there's a very big gray area in the joint rec IMA. Because it specifically stated back in 1968, when the first one came out, that the town would be responsible for everything at Craigville and the village would be responsible for everything at Erie Park.
I don't have that in this joint recreation IMA that I have is from 1968.
I have it on my desk, yeah.
It might be in the local law, the IMA, they're not in conflict, but they do elaborate on different parts. So it might be referencing the local law.
It's what, when I asked Barry for it, they pulled every one of them. There was 3. There was the original one in 68, and there were 2 addendums to it.
Correct.
And it clearly stated in there, I mean, I can, you know, we're not gonna discuss
No,
it.
yeah,
We're not looking
No,
at
no,
it
no,
tonight.
no. I just want to give it.
Because now I know we're putting 70,000 in, and I don't know how that started. Because in the original IMN, the budget was 50-50. We were supposed to split everything with the village. But somehow or another, we put 70,000 and they only put 50,000.
I think we put 85.
No,
Well, whatever it was, we're
we
putting
put about
20,000
20,
more.
we put about 25,000.
And I don't
a year.
understand it, because it's not in any of the agreements.
You
Oh, you
why?
know, oh, sorry.
You know why? We had some people from the public pressure us to do, when we're putting the budget together, put more in. And so we put more in, and the communication with the village, they might have been behind. I don't know. The same people
You
went
know-
over there to do their.
No, I think there was another agreement at one time. Remember how we used to split work in joint rec, the payroll?
5 years.
And the
before it
running.
was 2 years, now it's 5
Yeah,
years.
now they have
I'd
it
like to
all the
copy those
time.
Updated agreements.
Yeah, I-
Do you? Yeah.
And We probably gave them something for doing that.
When the original IMA was put in 1968, I'm sure we probably had an equal amount of people living in the village and the town.
Yeah.
The town has grown leaps and bounds in the last 30 years, 40 years. So I think we, as a municipality, have to look at funding this differently, but it's a conversation for some
So the
time.
village is part of the town.
Right.
It's part of the town, even though it's a separate. entity.
Right, do you think it's fair that, let's just say they have 3,000 residents, we have 10,000 residents, we have all this construction going on, they have no construction going on. It makes every project almost at a standstill if we look at them to contribute 50% to a project.
No, I understand that, but once again, it's mostly used by village people. All the people that are out in the town, at the far reaches of the town, don't come into this recreation.
I disagree with
And
that.
it's used, and by the
I
way,
disagree with that.
it's used by people out of town.
Yeah, well,
And
every
aren't
park
even
in the
village
county gets used
residents.
like that.
So
If we-
Every park in the county gets used like that. Town residents, most of those people have kids in Little League, soccer, softball. So town residents use the park a lot.
But they don't have anything, now, the fees that were put into those fees were supposed to be, well, in lieu of designating property for recreation.
Right.
We're supposed to go for recreation on that side of 17. Because all the parks are on this side. Those people over there with all those subdivisions had no recreation areas whatsoever. So all the parkland fees that all of those people are paying are going to support the parks that are in the village, just about, other than Craig. So somewhere along the line, we really need to look at this.
Yeah, and I think we could reach out to the subdivisions over there. I think they're very, I think they're, if you reach out to them and ask that question, I think a lot of them would tell you that they're very comfortable going to Craigville Park. You know, it's a great assembly of all the kids in the school district. So they see their friends. I don't think they want separation. I think they want improvement. I think
Plus
we need
they have
to
Lego.
improve that part.
They have Legoland over there
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so,
good.
you know, it kind of balances out.
Send your kids to play at Legoland every day.
I think
For
it's,
free.
yeah, right. Or, well, they get a discount. They get a discount.
You're right.
So, yeah.
We'll add this conversation to the next,
That's
meeting, because I think it'll be a
important.
great conversation.
Because I've been looking for land when I was on the Recreation Commission. We went to look for land on that side to build a facility, maybe along the Red Hill River. Because they dedicate a portion of that land as open space. And once again, I was on the board when we started charging, I'm talking 30 years ago. We said, you know what, we don't want that crap land. If they want to give us either good land or money in lieu of the land. But now most of the building is not here, it's out there. So we should really look at that.
And keep it with that topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Also want to let everybody know that the village is charging $3,500 a lot, not 3,000 like us.
Say that again, Joe.
Yeah.
The village is charging $3,500 per lot.
Right.
Parking
Parking,
fees.
yeah.
We're only
They
charging
have-
3.
The problem is they have very few lots. They don't have any.
Wait, that's a
parking.
pretty,
It's justification to look at it. So,
Yeah.
You bet. Good.
okay, public comments?
I know.
Yeah, I have a question about street dedication inherited. and
We received 4 of the easements today. Mary's
Where?
contacting the residents.
We
to come in
need some
and get-
signatures that have to be notarized, and it's missing some information. So I've contacted those residents, and they're gradually coming in and completing the paperwork for the
We still
easements.
have 2 residents along the easement that just refused to answer us. Roger has called them, I've called them, just, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna have to take a legal position on this. They just won't call, they won't call back. It's like I think the 2 people that we're talking about are repurchasers. So they weren't here for the original purchase or repurchase. So I don't know, Roy, it may be something you wanna take a look at and see how we get around that, because we gotta get around it. We can't close up that easement, and we can't dedicate the roads. We were hoping, when I started this 2 months ago, that we dedicated already, but I can't get them to do anything. I'm glad to go out with you. Want to go out and go knock on doors? No problem with that. You know, we got the 2 people, maybe we can get them to understand.
Yeah, and they aware, and maybe you can get them to be, understand that they're responsible, and that there's no reason they're gonna be responsible for the repair.
Well, we're gonna have to make them aware of
Yeah, it's
that,
gonna-
but do we want to take the position that we're gonna need, close this out? Dedicate the roads and do all of this work with a potential issue.
Yeah,
That
no,
may be
I
our
understand.
issue.
No, but they need to understand that.
Correct.
If there is an issue. that they can pay for. They don't do that.
If we're talking about that, where do you stand on well 6? Are they moving along? on
Yep,
that?
that's, we're waiting for Board of Health to come back.
Okay.
The application's in, they got all the equipment ready to go. He agreed, I spoke to Roger, I said, if you want to close this out, the only thing we will accept is a cash bond for the full amount.
There you go.
And he said he would give us the cash bond to close it out.
We have any idea what that amount's gonna be?
He says 60, Sean says 200.
There you go.
Well, that is too.
Let's see, which one is our engineer? That's right, Sean.
Well, I mean, you got, Sean's throwing a number out there based on prevailing wage, because if we
Yeah.
get stuck with it, we have to do a prevailing wage.
Right.
He doesn't have to do a prevailing wage.
Right.
So we're gonna have to find a happy medium between the 60 and the 200. I'm figuring somewhere around 100, 125 we can get done.
And the happy medium is what it's gonna cost us to do it. If he
Yeah.
doesn't do it, that sounds like.
Well, then I have to give, then what we have to do is I have to give Sean that information. He's gonna have to evaluate it and give us a price.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
yeah.
So then it seems like when you start to figure out the amount of money for the well, this issue with the easements have to be addressed. Is there anything else, or is everything else in order?
I believe that Mateus work was all completed, That's done. That's the catch basin behind Mateus' house.
Right.
That's completed and finished. So what we have is the one easement with the 4 houses. And we're done. We have 2 of them, I believe, Aaron, right?
I have a bunch. Which 2 don't we have?
I don't know. I'll have to go through them tomorrow. I
Yeah.
got the 4 names. I thought Steve Esposito told me there was two that he couldn't get a hold of.
Because then I tried to get a hold of people today, so hopefully maybe.
So we'll go through it tomorrow, and if we have all four, that's great. All we need is all we need is their notarization. I'll take Mary in my car and we'll go out there, knock on doors. Get it done. And hopefully next meeting, we're saying congratulations for plowing your property.
Okay.
Susan?
A letter, I know it's short notice, but I am glad that you're now the supervisor. And last summer, this board voted to deny their application for a zone change or a special use overlay to allow their property to be used to be repurposed as a wellness center based on a map that was highly inaccurate and misleading that the previous town attorney had prepared. I wrote a letter to this board and to the supervisor who ignored it. That letter needs to be struck from the record. And I'm asking you to reconsider this application based on an accurate map. It's very biased and misleading. And I also asked for an accountant because my escrow funds were spent creating that map and presenting it to you. And I want that money back. I want to refund. So I'd like you to bring this up. I'm asking it to be on the next agenda.
Well, I apologize. I was away on vacation skiing the 3 days. I got it. It was on my desk. It was a lot of data to go through. I knew it would be prepared for tonight and to be able to talk intelligently. So yes, we'll I think everybody's got a copy of it. If not, I will share it with everybody and then we'll get it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Is this something that
You just sent it to me on Monday.
20.
I didn't get?
No, it just came to me. I made copies of it, sent it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope
The letter was
rectify
addressed
this.
to me.
I really hope we can rectify it because in the meantime, after we voted it down, there's been horrible vandalism and destruction of that property,
It was.
that gorgeous property that was in beautiful condition. I really hold you responsible for that. So I hope we can rectify this. Thank you.
Hold us responsible for the
For allowing-
vandalism?
for
For the
voting-
vandalism?
Yes,
No.
yes, I hold you responsible.
Could I just say?
Yeah.
Before
We
we
didn't close yet.
I mean, is there any other public comment? So this is on my thing here about the best value, right? So now we have this and.
For
We
review, yeah.
gave it everybody to look at. We're gonna
Right,
put it
right, so
on the
what-
agenda
what's the
meeting.
next meeting?
Next
will be-
Well, I was
meeting.
looking for feedback. We have to have, I have to have it final draft to you 7 days out from the meeting for us to move forward. So I figured got about a week to give me commentary on it.
Okay,
One thing I will say, since we're all here, is there's not a section, there's chapters and articles, then subdivisions of the articles. That's where the code reads. There's not a section really where this fits like perfect. I mean, it's in the fees section. So I wrote it with, there's 2 articles in the fees section. One is for the planning board and zoning, then it goes to public gatherings, I believe, off the top of my head. So I created it as a new article in the fees section. And if you'll see that it puts it as Article 3, and then it's under Chapter 85, then Article 3, and then. So that's the only thing that I mean, I wasn't 100% clear on how you guys wanted to add it into the code. There are certain sections that are reserved that you can fill it in, but there isn't really one in the fees section. But there's nothing saying you can't just create another article within a chapter. Because if I put it in the planning and zoning, it would be overly specific to that section, because it's really about any purchase contract or service contract is applying the best value. So that's why I'm just giving you some explanation rather than,
right. So you want input from us
Or we-
over this next.
if you say thumbs up, it's good enough, or no input, then it's gonna be before you as that. I'll send it
Okay,
as the final draft, but I figured give you some time since it's.
You need it back by next Thursday.
I really, ideally, I need the feedback before next Thursday, so I can make those changes, right? So something, Monday, Tuesday would be ideal for me. So I can then get you guys another working copy with the hopes that we would be able to move on it come next board meeting.
yep. So then the other part of this is I thought there was going to be some modifications to our procurement that Verpo was doing. So has
It's
that
only
been done
after
yet?
That's a law.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a copy or a draft copy of what the procurement policy will be with the new
But
verbiage
you have
in
to
it.
get the law in place first.
Yes.
before-
Right, from a procedural end, the first step is
Oh,
is
the
a law.
law.
Yeah,
After the
it
law.
seems, I know it could seem like kind of backwards, but I'll get you everything so you can be looking at it together.
Yeah.
All right, I just
But
figured that,
overall, the process is this first,
Yeah.
pass this,
And
and
then
then there's
finalize the
a
procurement.
procurement
Yeah.
policy that.
so
maybe some
I'll break that down
recommendations.
for you in an email to make it easier, what the steps are. We talked about it last meeting. I don't have my notes directly in front of me for
Right.
that, but I'll just write it out for you guys in an email. Make sure you know what the steps will be, okay?
Okay, and then I had one other thing that we talked about very briefly, but I haven't heard any more talk about it. At least as far as my agenda, I'd like to see it, and that's the merging of the courts.
Okay, I can give you an update on that.
Village, but just one last thing.
Sure.
One minute is, I seem to recollect something about the Office of Court Administration, the state level. They will do because they want mergers to take place, they will actually do the legwork on that type of stuff and then present it to us.
I would say go ahead.
Yeah, if
Sorry.
I can just, I think if we go that direction, they're gonna want the village to suspend all court.
Right,
And the village isn't willing to do that initially.
there's multiple
They want
levels
this up
of
in IMF.
how you can do this.
Oh, I see.
Right, so there's, very briefly, there's shared services and then there's complete consolidation of something. You use the term consolidation in that respect, the village would give up all opportunities of gaining revenue. It would be a complete being subsumed into the town. I don't think they're willing to do that yet, because that would cause, like any other consolidation, it causes jobs, it causes a lot of things. So I think ultimately, that's where it heads. There's a lot of studies that show shared services is a great way to begin that process. The procedure to getting there is completely different too. One is permissive referendum versus an IMA.
Right.
So right now, for expediency purposes, for building into this, it appears it would be an IMA with shared services, evaluate how that's working, and then maybe look towards a full consolidation.
Even if we did that, they'd still be responsible. I did a little research on that. When we were talking about it, there still would be, even if they didn't get the revenue, they'd still be responsible for all of the expenses.
Yeah, it's
And the only
why there's so
revenue
many
they
courts.
get
I
Would
mean,
be from parking, and local traffic
Right.
violations, we would get the rest.
So-
So they are aware of that, so that they don't come at the last minute and say,
Well,
whoa.
The beauty is I don't have to give them legal advice, so
Right.
and we all know Dave Donovan is more than, they have done their homework on it,
Okay.
and it was, we had you could speak to, but it was a productive meeting, and Dave and I worked in multiple capacities together, so there'll be progress, you should see it in the next, ideally, we want to be putting it in front of on the next agenda, we're just waiting on,
Yeah,
Is that
some
gonna have to
stuff.
go for a referendum? even
No.
if it's IMA?
it won't, if it's shared services, not consolidation, it can be done through an intermunicipal agreement.
Okay,
Rather than the permissive referendum, and
right.
some of that stuff about moving these parts around has to do with election cycles, things of that nature, and so.
So with the IMA, then are there still two courts then? Is one still at the village? and one
Well,
here?
that's hard to, I mean, I can answer that two ways. Physically, it would, you may operate two different court calendars, but there wouldn't necessarily be two different courts going on. You could have, it's a little deep of an answer to give off the cuff,
There's a
but
revenue and expense stream.
yes.
Both.
Yeah, most importantly, that's the point, right?
that's what
It would
we
be
are.
using less court officers and less
Yeah.
personnel, and
consolidation of both courts at
Right.
the same night is a reduction in.
that
Yeah,
term, I just try and
yeah.
avoid it. That's why I keep using
Yeah.
shared services, because consolidation gives off the impression of something else. So that's why I'm separating the two terms. But in spirit, it's consolidation.
Scott wants to go beyond this. We've
Yeah.
talked about maybe even starting
Yeah.
discussions with both
I-
our town building inspectors are retiring, so we talked about that too.
George, I'm waiting on one document from Dave. Otherwise, I would have had an update for you. So I was expecting to have it this week. So once I do, I'll break it down for you guys.
Occasionally, we've had joint meetings in the town
Correct?
on certain issues, and I think sometimes they were always productive. nothing ever came of labor.
Right.
But they were productive because everybody could say, instead of doing this, everybody got on the same page.
Sure.
What we did with it later, so if there's anything with any, not consolidation.
Yes,
Yeah.
no,
That you want to joint meeting with sometime, I mean.
Well, I think what we're looking at doing, get a little more information provided to you
Yeah,
guys. If you guys are on board with it, or there's no consternation towards it, then we don't necessarily need that meeting, right? But if there's issues, right now there weren't any. It seemed like we were in lockstep in a good way, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the town board needs to know what's involved.
Right.
I mean, that.
We're gonna have to vote on it.
Yeah, I'm not expecting, I mean,
Full
I'm
disclosure.
giving you the macro,
Yeah,
the
but I
spirit of what we're trying to do, but yeah, I would certainly expect you guys to have every detail of what, from when court will be held to what happens with the revenue.
I know, for example, when we work with the county on assessing, which has been an incredible thing. We've saved over $1 million since we've done that. There were a lot of idiosyncrasies and things
Sure.
that had to be worked around and so forth and so on. And those are the things that nail you if it didn't go.
100%.
Right, because
The devil's in the details,
we
though.
talked about consolidating the police department. And obviously the village has to come with a higher form of government. We
Yeah.
went to Albany.
Oh, yeah, we went to
We went to
Albany.
Albany,
Yeah.
we spent time with.
Baby steps.
After we get out of there, our heads were like spinning because it's so.
That's not gonna happen anytime soon.
Well, that's, I mean,
No, but I'm saying with consolidation or whatever.
yeah,
There are a lot of loose ends that you have to.
it's not a bad word anymore to say out loud, Phil. I mean, it's a term that used to be frowned upon, but it's gonna be, as Joe would tell you this, I mean, it's coming down the pipeline. Maybe not this
Yeah.
year, maybe not in 10 years,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be thrust upon the
We-
group, so we
Better
might as well
look at
pick
On
it.
our terms than the.
Right.
government.
We tried it a long time ago.
I know, and, you know,
When
a
they
lot
came
of,
down and said, we want to consolidate, Cornwall said, we want to consolidate, we said, okay, we're gonna do it.
yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why the courts seem to be a good avenue. You have the same judges in there, you have the
Yeah.
personnel meshes pretty well.
Yeah,
So if you can pull it off without, hurting anybody and gaining, then it's the perfect start. It's a good test balloon to float and see what we want to do after that,
Good.
Motion to close?
Motion to close.
make it easy, man.
So
moved.
It is
Who made the
purely
motion?
coincidental.
Bill, you made the motion? Who
My
did?
motion?
Still second.
Second, all in favor?
Ah.
I just
Thank
want
you
to
very
note that
much.
it's coincidental that we're doing the court consolidation after I left. It's just purely,
Yeah.
it's just, I swear.
That's a
I
discussion for another time.
I swear.
There-
It's one of